One of the most interesting power dynamics which has been revealed by this crisis is the burgeoning power of digital platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and the attempts that they made to shape this debate. Now, I got, to talk... Basically, Twitter have been involved in the last however many months in any woman who mentions male violence is chucked off their site. They have actively facilitated this because they have decided, this bunch of fucking weird dude bros in Silicon Valley have decided that this is what the law should be, and they don't have any awareness of the context in which they exist. They have no idea of the complexity of the systems that actually are part of democracy. And in all the screaming about, Twitter is the future of democracy, what Twitter was a platform where identity could form without context, and existing elite institutions could pretend that they were mixing with the public without that context and just ignore that context. And so what we've seen is the unedifying thing of what happens when these media institutions that usually sell kind of narcissistic narratives moved into a digital environment. They had to reproduce abuse around them, and women had to be silenced. Now, I've just seen somebody's entire Facebook page taken down because they wrote an essay about women. Silicon Valley have just, before they ever had the power to do so, have shown that if they were given that power, would make women unspeakable. Would literally make the word woman unspeakable. And so I think the thing that we have to look at here is how much power these, where is power in a democracy? What upholds power in a democracy? Can a digital platform exercise that much power? I mean, Facebook doesn't have any of my data. Facebook thinks I'm a male who studied unicornology at Oxford and doesn't even know my name. I don't give Facebook any of my real data. I haven't done for years and years and years. But, Facebook and Twitter never had the power that they thought they had. But when they thought they had it, they tried to use it. And I think probably the same goes to YouTube. I'm quite sure YouTube have been doing the same. And I think when Google started out, it was, don't be, I can't remember, what was their phrase? Don't be a dick or something, I don't remember. Don't be bad. It's a lot more difficult than that. Reflection on power is required. And even if your power is intended for good, you always have to look at what happens when that goes wrong. The Guardian have just shown that after years of them pretending they have no power, they do have power, and they use it routinely, and they use it routinely to reproduce their own class identity and to suppress other people's thought and speech. And that if necessary, they will use physical abuse to uphold that. Now, that's power that couldn't be exercised, and in exercising it, they've kind of neutralised it. But it's overt now. And that's power that, with The Guardian, that's power that they always thought had existed. TERF was about control over an imaginary version of feminism where all the world's women were controlled from the pages of the political press in the UK. This was never, ever the case. Now, while on Twitter what you see is kind of media organisations playing out delusional identities in the dying days of them functioning, what you also see is Silicon Valley and the amount of power that these companies think that they should have. Women now have their Facebook pages taken down if they say I'm a woman. On Twitter, it's been used for organised abusive males and paedophiles to try and undermine safeguarding frameworks in multiple countries. So I think we have to really look. And I think one of the things that the self-ID crisis has really brought about is that we have to pay attention to the amount of power that these organisations think that they have and ask ourselves how able democracy is to keep that in check. Now, what we're showing in the UK is that democracy can keep that in check, but that requires people. And the mode of political communication that the left have had, which is where they try and tally two truths that do not tally, and they call it triangulation, all that happens is you add a social dimension to political communication, that becomes very dangerous. And so now we're at a point where we have to be able to tell the difference between the avatars of ourselves that are online, that are not real, and the real us in the real world that actually we're seeking to shape. And I think that's a really interesting process and an interesting thing that's been opened up. And I think, we're at the dawn of the digital revolution. We are sat here wondering, like agrarian peasants, wondering what you know, the digital revolution will be like. We are in an age of information, and this is very, very early doors. We're like the first people staggering into this age. And the lessons that we learn and the power dynamics that are opened up are actually really, really, really important, because we're at the formative days of this age. So I thought it was worth doing a video about Twitter and the power of social media and the way that Silicon Valley have attempted to shape this debate, and the fact that they haven't succeeded so far.